Most men don't realize what they had until the woman they took for granted is already gone. And by the time it hits them, it's already too late to fix what broke in silence. Because what makes a man fall the hardest is not constant love. It is the moment that love stops chasing him and starts choosing itself instead. Pay close attention, because what you are about to hear is not the usual advice about love or attachment. This is about human psychology, emotional contrast, and why distance can sometimes create more impact than presence ever could. Most people misunderstand this completely. They think staying closer fixes everything. But in reality, sometimes the strongest emotional shift happens when access is removed. And once you understand this, you will never look at attachment the same way again. Right now, I want to talk with you about something most people never truly understand until it is already far too late. Why men fall the deepest for the woman who had the courage and strength to let him go. Stay with me closely, because what I am about to share can shift the way you see love, power, and your own value. Letting go is not weakness. Letting go is one of the strongest moves a person can ever make. The world keeps telling you that holding on, trying harder, chasing longer, that is what love looks like. That is what strength is supposed to be. But let me speak to you honestly, from a grown man's point of view. The most unforgettable woman a man will ever meet in his life is the woman who loved herself enough to walk away. Not because she stopped caring, but because she cared so deeply that she could not ignore her own worth anymore. She understood what she deserved. She knew exactly what she brought into his life, and she realized that real love should never require you to lose yourself just to keep it alive. There is something very powerful about a woman who chooses to leave with calm strength. No shouting, no begging, no trying to prove anything, just quiet confidence and self-respect. That kind of woman leaves a mark on a man's soul that time cannot erase, because he did not lose her to another person. He lost her to herself. And that kind of loss feels different. It does not fade away easily. It does not disappear with distractions or new faces. It stays with him. It shows up late at night when everything is quiet. It appears in his thoughts when he least expects it, because slowly he begins to understand what she really meant to him. She was the one who stood beside him when no one else did. She was the one who believed in him even when he doubted himself. She saw his best side even when he was showing the world his worst. And still, he let her walk away. Now this is how it really works inside a man's mind. When a woman walks away, it forces him to stop and look at himself honestly. He begins to replay everything in his head. The messages he ignored, the calls he did not answer, the plans he cancelled, the effort he never returned. It all comes back like a film he cannot stop watching. And it hits him harder, because now there is silence where there used to be presence. Men do not always say this out loud, but silence from the right woman can be louder than any argument. That silence carries weight. That distance holds a kind of power that words never could. And here is what most people never fully understand. Walking away does not mean the love disappeared. It does not mean the feelings were not real. It simply means you started choosing yourself in a way you never did before. You finally realized that loving someone should not feel like you are asking for your own value again and again. It should not feel confusing or painful every single day. So when you walk away, what you are really saying is simple. I deserve better. I deserve peace. I deserve to be chosen every day, not only when it is easy or convenient. That realization changes everything inside you. Now let me speak from the man's side again, because this is where it becomes very real. When she leaves, it humbles him deeply. Every man knows when a woman is rare. We recognize when someone is different, but we become comfortable. We assume she will stay. We tell ourselves she will forgive again. We think she will continue accepting our half-effort and inconsistent presence without leaving. But when she does leave, when she walks away without turning back, that is when everything hits at once. The full weight of what he lost becomes real. And this is not the kind of loss that can be replaced easily. He can try to distract himself. He can meet new people and fill his time. But the woman who left because she valued herself, not because she hated him, stays in his mind longer than anyone else. She does not just disappear. She grows. She becomes stronger. She improves her life. And watching that change, seeing her rise instead of fall, affects him deeply. Because she is not just gone. She is better than before. That change in her energy, that quiet confidence stays in his memory. It follows him in ways he cannot escape because it reminds him of what he once had and did not protect. The truth is, when a woman lets go with clarity instead of anger, it is not just an emotional reaction. It is a clear decision. It is a choice made with awareness and self-respect. That is strength at its highest level. And the man who sees her walk away finally understands what he had all along. He just could not see it clearly until she was no longer there. So never let anyone make you believe that walking away means you are weak. It takes courage to stop trying to fix something that refuses to change. It takes strength to say, I love you, but I love myself more. A woman like that does not lose anything. She moves forward with power. She carries herself with grace. And every man who underestimated her learns the truth too late. Let me give you something real to think about. And I want you to focus closely here. Sometimes the only thing that makes a man see clearly is distance. You can stand in front of him and give him everything he ever said he wanted. Love, loyalty, time, patience, support, all of it. And still, he may not fully see you. Not because he feels nothing, but because he believes you will always be there. That is the danger of comfort. It blinds him slowly. He stops valuing what is right in front of him because he thinks there is always more time. He believes he can fix things later. He assumes you will wait forever. But the moment you step back, the moment you stop showing up the way you used to, everything begins to change in his mind. It is like the fog suddenly clears. It is like he finally sees a reflection he ignored for a long time. That is when truth becomes visible. That is when clarity begins to form. Distance does not only create space between two people, it creates awareness inside the man. It forces him to face things he avoided for a long time. Men do not always express their feelings openly, but when everything becomes quiet and you are no longer there in the same way, that silence becomes heavy. That is when his thoughts become louder. That is when he starts realizing how much of his world you were quietly supporting. All the small things you did without expecting anything in return begin to matter. That simple message in the morning, the way you checked on him during the day, the way you listened when he needed it, all of it begins to replay in his mind with a new meaning. He starts to understand that those small moments were never small at all. They were the foundation of what he took for granted. And once they are gone, he finally feels the space they leave behind. That check-in call in the middle of his toughest day, that encouragement when he felt like everything was falling apart. Your laughter, your warmth, your steady presence suddenly gone. And the strange part is this. Your absence creates a stronger presence in his mind than your actual presence ever did. That is the real truth behind it. You step back and suddenly you are everywhere he turns in his thoughts. A woman does not need to create drama or make a loud exit. She does not need to slam doors or create chaos. Sometimes just a small shift, a little emotional or physical space is enough to shake a man out of his comfort zone, because now he has to live without something he slowly became used to having every day. And believe me, the moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop explaining yourself, the moment you stop proving your love or reminding him of your value, that is exactly when he starts paying real attention. because you are no longer available on demand. Now he is forced to sit alone with his thoughts and face his own choices without distraction. That space you create gives him time to reflect on who you really were in his life and who he became when you were beside him. Men need contrast in order to understand value. We need to feel life without something before we truly appreciate what it meant when it was there. Most men will never admit this openly, but deep down, every honest man knows it is true. When a woman is always present, always giving, always reaching for a man who is not fully present himself, he often stops noticing what he is receiving. It becomes normal. It becomes expected. It becomes something he assumes will always be there. But the moment she steps back, the moment she removes herself from constant availability, she gives him something powerful without even trying. She gives him perspective. And that perspective is what wakes him up. A little distance can teach a man more about a woman than years of being right next to her ever could. That is the uncomfortable truth. And here is what makes that distance even more powerful. While he is sitting in that silence, trying to process what changed, you are no longer stuck in the same cycle. You are not chasing, you are not fixing, you are not trying to convince anyone of your worth. Instead, you start turning inward. You focus on your own growth, your healing, your peace, your life. And that shift in energy, that quiet transformation, becomes visible even from a distance. He may not see you every day, but he feels the change. He senses that something is different. That calm glow, that emotional independence, that quiet strength does not go unnoticed. And nothing makes a man think harder than realizing the woman he took for granted is still moving forward without him. Because now she is not standing still, waiting to be chosen. She is growing in a direction that does not require his permission. Let me say this clearly. When a woman creates space, she is not just pulling away. She is offering something powerful. She is giving a man the chance to wake up, to reflect, to understand her value, and to decide whether he is willing to meet her at the level she is rising to. Some men rise to that moment. They realize what they almost lost, and they change. They show up differently. They become more aware, more present, more intentional. But even those who do not change cannot erase the impact. That moment stays with them. That shift in energy stays with them. Because once a woman chooses herself, the entire dynamic changes permanently. Distance is not always the end of a connection. Sometimes it is the beginning of a man's awakening. It is not always about leaving forever. Sometimes it is about stepping back just long enough for truth to become visible. Because when a man starts thinking about you in silence, when there is no noise, no distraction, no constant access to you, that is when reality hits. That is when he realizes you were never ordinary. That is when he understands he treated something valuable as if it was guaranteed. And once that awareness arrives, it does not leave easily. Let me break this down even deeper. In a world full of fast connections, situationships, and emotional confusion, there is one thing that leaves a lasting mark on a man's heart more than anything else. It is not just beauty. It is not just memories. It is not even the good times shared together. The one thing that stays longer than everything else is a woman's self-respect. That is what makes her unforgettable. Many women fall into the pattern of overgiving. They love deeply, they stay loyal, they forgive repeatedly, they invest emotionally even when the return is not equal. And they believe that effort alone will make a man stay. But the truth is very different. What actually makes a man value a woman is when he sees that she values herself more than she values the idea of him. That is where self-respect becomes powerful. It is not loud, it does not beg for attention, it does not try to prove anything. It simply exists in her choices. It shows when she refuses inconsistency. It shows when she stops accepting half effort. It shows when she walks away from anything that keeps draining her emotionally, even if her heart is still attached. And when a man witnesses that kind of strength, it stays in his memory, because he realizes she was never just someone who tolerated him. She was someone who could leave him if she was not treated right. That changes how he sees her forever. She is no longer optional. She becomes unforgettable. And here is something important about men that most people do not understand clearly. We do not always recognize value when we are in the middle of it. Sometimes we get distracted. Sometimes we take things for granted. Sometimes we confuse availability with lack of importance. But when a woman walks in with self-respect, when she carries herself with calm confidence and emotional strength, she stands out in a different way. She is not trying to chase. She is not trying to convince. She is simply being herself, grounded and aware of her worth. That kind of energy is rare, and rarity is what creates attraction on a deeper level. Real self-respect does not need noise. It does not need to announce itself. It is felt in silence, in presence, in boundaries. And here is what stays with a man the longest after everything is over. He remembers that she could have stayed. She could have ignored the imbalance. She could have kept adjusting herself to fit into something that was not fully giving back. But she chose not to. She chose herself instead of confusion. And even if his pride told him he was fine at that moment, deep down, he knew the truth. He had just lost something real. Not because she made a scene, not because she fought, but because she refused to stay in a place where she was not valued properly. That is why self-respect is not just a trait. It is a message. It tells the world that her presence is not guaranteed anywhere she is not appreciated. And that message does not fade. It stays in memory long after she is gone. Now, here is one of the most honest truths about attraction that changes everything when you understand it properly. Men chase what they feel they might lose. Not what is always available, not what is predictable, not what is guaranteed to stay no matter what. A man wakes up emotionally when he feels that something important is slipping away. That shift creates urgency. It creates awareness. It creates action. Because comfort makes men relax, but uncertainty makes them reflect. That is why when you step back, when you stop overextending, when you stop making yourself constantly available, something changes in his mind. He no longer feels secure in assuming you will always be there. And that uncertainty forces him to think differently. Now he starts asking himself questions he ignored before. Did I take her for granted? Did I lose someone who actually cared deeply? Did I assume she would never leave? And once those questions begin, the emotional shift has already started. There is real power in knowing when to step away. Not from anger, not from revenge, but from peace. That kind of decision carries a message that words cannot match. It tells a man that value was present, but not appreciated enough at the time. And in that realization, something inside him changes. In the end, everything comes down to one simple truth. Real love is never about losing yourself to keep someone else close. It is about staying true to your own worth, your peace, and your emotional balance. When a woman chooses to step back, it is not a game and it is not punishment. It is clarity. It is the moment she decides that she will no longer stay in confusion, inconsistency, or one-sided effort. And in that space, both people see the truth more clearly. She rediscovers her strength, her direction, and her value. He is left with reflection, understanding, and awareness of what was taken for granted. Sometimes distance becomes the only language that creates real understanding. But the deepest lesson is this: self-respect changes everything. It shapes how you are treated, how you are remembered, and how you carry yourself forward. The right connection will never require you to shrink, chase, or question your worth. It will meet you with the same effort, respect, and presence that you give. And when that balance is missing, walking away is not an ending. It is a return to yourself,